Hi everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today I'm bringing you Thekazi Critters, bunny version. It's divided into two main parts, the main part and decorations. First, crochet the main part. Once completed, make the decorations and attach them. Let's start with the main part. Begin with a chain stitch, then crochet in rounds for a section. After that, work back and forth. Let's take a look at the chart. In the chart, our plus number indicates the round number. The increases and decreases explanation column shows the stitch techniques needed when crocheting the current round. It also indicates where to increase or decrease stitches. The total stitches column shows the total number of stitches after completing all stitches in the current round. The stitches used include chain, CH, double crochet, FB double crochet increase, and slip stitch. Next, watch me demonstrate the specific crochet method. The yarn used for the main part here is special. This yarn has long fibers, making it hard to see the stitches when crocheting. First, I'll demonstrate the method using cotton yarn. Then, I'll explain the using the corresponding yarn. You can learn the method first, or practice with easier to see yarn. Once mastered, use the corresponding yarn for crocheting. I'm using random yarn colors here. For specific yarn, color schemes and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and paper instructions. First, let's cast on. The chart shows 3CH, meaning the casting on method is chain cast on. Then cast on 3 stitches. Let's start with chain cast on. Pick up the yarn with your right hand. Wrap the yarn around your left little finger. Pass it through between the middle finger and index finger. Pinch the yarn tail with your left thumb and middle finger. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. The hook moves between these 2 points. Position the hook underneath the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. Pinch the crossing point of the loop with your left thumb and middle finger. Then position the hook to the left of the yarn. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise. Pull the yarn through the loop. Tighten the yarn tail. Note: keep the loop on the hook slightly loose for easier crocheting later. This slip knot does not count as a stitch. You can also begin with a slip knot method. Cross the yarn tails. Then from underneath the loop, pull the yarn tail through. Then place the slip knot loop onto the crochet hook. Adjust slightly. Hang the yarn properly with the left hand using the previous method. Now begin crocheting chain stitches. Yarn over. Pull through. 1 chain stitch is done. On this chain stitch, pick up the V-shaped loop side. Pick up both strands of the chain stitch. Place a stitch marker to mark it. Continue yarn over. Pull through. This is the second stitch. A total of 3 stitches need to be crocheted here. Crochet 1 more stitch. The starting chain is now completed. 1 chain on the hook represents 1 stitch. The loop on the hook is not counted in the stitch count. The starting chain explanation is finished. Begin the first round. R1, chain 3, 12 DC, meaning start crocheting from the third stitch from the end. The number before F indicates how many double crochets to make. Here it means crochet 12 double crochets. First find the position of the third stitch from the end, which is actually the first chain stitch of the starting chain. Verify by counting from right to left. 1, 2, 3. Still this chain stitch. So we insert the hook into the stitch marker's space. Work 1 double crochet, first the loop on the hook, which is inserting into this braid. Place a stitch marker to mark it. Pay attention not to weave in the crocheted yarn. Then yarn over once. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 loops remaining. Continue to yarn over and draw through in once. Completed the double crochet. Here is the stitch marker's position. The V-shaped loop is the stitch of the double crochet. 1 stitch represents 1 stitch. Continue to pick up the same position. Work 11 double crochets. I'll demonstrate the technique for double crochet again. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. Repeat twice. Once. Twice. Complete the double crochet. Continue with 10 double crochets. One stitch. Two stitches. Three stitches. Nine stitches. 10 stitches. Plus the previous 2 stitches. A total of 12 double crochets completed. Check the stitch count after finishing. The stitch pattern corresponding to the chart is now complete. Remove the stitch marker at the insertion point. Finally, at the stitch of the first double crochet, Which is the position marked by the stitch marker? Work 1 slip stitch to join. Insert. Yarn over and pull through. Pull through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the slip stitch. The braid on the upper right here is the braid of the slip stitch. The slip stitch doesn't count as one stitch. You need to tighten its braid. Then tighten the loops on the hook. This makes the right side braid smaller. The slip stitch is not indicated in the form. Actually, when crocheting in rounds, always finish by joining with a slip stitch and tighten. Here the starting tail of the yarn is not handled yet. It can be used to distinguish the right and wrong sides. The side with the starting yarn tail is the wrong side of the fabric. And the stitch texture is relatively blurry. Vice versa is the right side. At this point the first round is complete. Next, crochet round 2. R2 is 2CH, 12 DC2 in 1. DC2 in 1 means double crochet increase. The number before it indicates how many double crochet increases to make. Here it means to crochet 12 double crochet increases. Continue with the yarn from the previous round. First, make 2 turning chains as beginning chain. 1, 2. The turning chain doesn't count as one stitch, not included in the total stitch count. Then place a marker on the entire yarn loop on the hook. This way, after completing the corresponding stitches, the marker position will exactly be at the corresponding stitch position. Pick up the marker spot from the previous round. At the spot where you previously slip stitched and drew through, work a DC2 in 1, which means making 2 double crochets in the same position. One stitch. At this point the marker marks the stitch position. Continue crocheting 2 stitches. Complete the double crochet increase. You can remove the marker here. Then continue picking up the left side stitches. Work double crochet increases. After completing, you'll need to work 10 more double crochet increases downward, all done by making 2 double crochets in each stitch. Complete the last double crochet increase. Check the stitch count. Remember, the turning chain doesn't count as one stitch? The total stitches for each round are clearly marked in the corresponding chart. I won't mention this again moving forward. Finally, at the marked position, work 1 slip stitch to join. Insert. Yarn over and draw through. Pull through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the slip stitch. Tighten the braid as well. The second round is complete. Work round 3 downward. Make 2 chain stitches to begin. The following chart shows FFV X1 2. The parentheses here indicate a group. The multiplication number indicates the number of times to repeat the pattern. Work 1 double crochet. Pay attention to mark before crocheting. Pick up loops to mark before working the first stitch. I won't remind you repeatedly afterward. Insert into the marked stitch of the previous round and crochet accordingly. Remove the stitch marker after completing it. Next work 1 double crochet 2 in 1. FFV is completed. I'll demonstrate once more. Work 1 double crochet. Work 1 double crochet 2 in 1. This is the second time. Repeat FFV 10 more times afterward. All following the method of 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet 2 in 1. Finally pick up the marked position, and join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. The third round is complete. Now work the fourth round. Chain 2 as beginning chain. Work the stitch pattern inside the parentheses. Work 1 double crochet. Move on to 1 double crochet 2 in 1. Work 1 more double crochet afterward. FFV F is completed. I'll demonstrate again. 1 double crochet. 1 double crochet 2 in 1. 1 double crochet. This is the second time. Continue to repeat the stitch pattern inside the parentheses. Complete the required number of times. After finishing all, join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. Round 4 is completed. Move on to round 5. Work even for this round. Make 2 chains as beginning chain. Then pick up the stitch corresponding one stitch to another and work a double crochet. Check the stitch count after completing, same as the previous round. Then pick up the marker position and slip stitch. Pull tight. Round 5 is completed. For the remaining part, work back and forth, meaning no need to join with a slip stitch at the end. Continue the sequence from previous rows. Next is row 6. Make 2 chains as beginning chain. The beginning chain here corresponds to the beginning chain of the previous round. The chart shows turn, indicating you need to turn the fabric. Turn counterclockwise. Then pick up stitches to the left. Work the corresponding number of double crochets. Continue all the way down to the position before the previous round's beginning chain, which is the position marked by the stitch marker. Complete the marked position. At this point, this row is finished. No need to join with a slip stitch. This creates an opening at the beginning and end. Row 6 is now complete. You can remove the stitch marker here. Then proceed to row 7, using the same method. Start with 2 chain stitches as beginning chain. Then turn the fabric. Begin working from the first stitch at the edge downward. Work double crochets correspondingly into each stitch. Continue crocheting until next to the beginning chain of the previous row, right before the opening. When reaching the beginning chain of the previous row, no need to work. The stitch count for this row is identical to the previous row. Row 7 is now complete. For the remaining rows, continue crocheting using the same method as row 7. Switch colors during the last few rows. When counting row numbers or rounds here, count each raised texture as 1. Each raised texture represents 1 round or row. The swatch currently has 7 raised textures. When encountering insufficient yarn while crocheting, you can work an incomplete double crochet to join yarn. I'll demonstrate the method using the swatch. Everyone please pay attention to join yarn on the double crochet. First work an incomplete double crochet, yarn over the hook once. Insert. Yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on the hook. This is an incomplete double crochet. Then pick up the new yarn. Leave a little yarn tail. Yarn over and pull through. Completed the double crochet, and completed joining the yarn. Tie a knot to secure both yarn tails on the wrong side of the fabric. Leave the yarn tails on the wrong side of the fabric for now. Continue crocheting normally. This is the method for joining yarn. I'll demonstrate the color change method using a swatch below. After completing the rows of the corresponding color, work 1 chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Then pick up the new color. Place the yarn tail from the end of the previous row on the right side. Then insert the hook into the edge stitch. Hang the new yarn on the left hand. Leave a little yarn tail. Yarn over and pull through. Chain 2 as beginning chain. Continue crocheting accordingly below. When crocheting here, you can place both yarn tails above the hook. Weave in the ends as you go along. Or tie them in a knot and place them back in position, then hide them into the fabric later. This is the method for changing colors. After completing all crocheting, break the yarn, then weave in the yarn tail into the fabric. Here I'll demonstrate the method of weaving in ends. On the wrong side of the fabric. Follow the stitch pattern to weave in the yarn. You can weave in for several more stitches. Cut off the remaining yarn tail. Handle the other yarn tails using the same method. Now the crocheting method for the main part is complete. Moving forward, I'll use the original yarn. Let's go over some things to pay attention to while crocheting. First is the cast on. The yarn might be hard to see here, so watch carefully as you work. Crochet a bit slower. Start with the same method demonstrated earlier using cotton yarn. Chain cast on. Then make 3 chains. After completing the first chain, you can feel where the loop under the crochet hook is the first chain stitch. Feel with your hands, there's a small hole. Place a stitch marker on the first stitch. We'll put it directly into the hole. Continue crocheting chains. 2 chains. 3 chains. Let's feel the chain stitches again. When you feel them continuously, there's a bump between every 2 chain stitches. The indented hole position is where the chain stitch is. The starting chain is now complete. Next, pick up the small hole position of the first chain stitch. Crochet 12 double crochets. Since it's hard to find the stitches later, we need to mark every stitch here. First, place a stitch marker on the loop on your hook. Insert a stitch marker. To make it easier to distinguish the marker spot on our first stitch marker, add another stitch marker. The stitch position with 2 stitch markers is the first stitch. Pick down to the stitch marker of the first chain. Work 1 double crochet. When crocheting here, you can feel and crochet at the same time. Crochet slowly, yarn over. Insert. Yarn over and pull through. If you want it looser here, you can enlarge the loop a bit. Conversely, pull the yarn shorter. You can check or feel it. There are 3 loops on the hook. Then yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. Leaving 2 loops. Yarn over and draw through in once. This completes 1 double crochet. The position marked by the stitch marker now is the stitch of this double crochet. Feel the marked spot with your hands. It's a small dent. The lower left of the hole feels firm. This is the post of the double crochet. The upper right feels softer. This is the double crochet stitch. Place a stitch marker on the loop on the hook. Then in the same insertion point, make 1 double crochet. Before each subsequent stitch, pick up the entire loop and place a stitch marker. The second marker position is the stitch of the second double crochet. Continue to complete the remaining stitches. Now there are 3 stitch markers, meaning 3 double crochets have been made. After completing, check the stitch count. Simply count the number of stitch markers here. The first stitch is between the 2 marker spots. Then remove the stitch marker from the previous insertion point. At this point, the stitch pattern in the chart is finished. Down to the position with 2 stitch markers. Join with a slip stitch. Insert into the chain space marked by the stitch marker. Work the stitch. After completing, pull tight. At this point, the first round is complete. To make it convenient for checking the round count later, place a stitch marker in any stitch on this side. Continue crocheting the second round. First make 2 beginning chains. Then at the position below with 2 stitch markers. Work double crochet 2 in 1. This round still requires marking every stitch. Place 2 stitch markers at the first stitch position. Crochet accordingly. Complete the corresponding position of the stitch marker. The stitch marker below can be removed. Pick up the previous round's marker positions downward respectively. Evenly work double crochet 2 in 1. When reaching the position of 2 stitch markers, now check the stitch count. The stitch count in the chart is complete. Then at the first stitch, which is the position of 2 stitch markers, join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. This completes round 2. Similarly, mark any one stitch in this round. You can feel it here. You can mark one stitch above the previous round's marker position. Convenient for later checking. For round 3 and onwards, use the same method. After completing the turning chain, follow the chart to crochet the corresponding stitches. Place 2 stitch markers at the first stitch position. Then place 1 stitch marker after each stitch, underneath where you completed the corresponding stitch. You can remove the stitch markers after finishing. Once you're more experienced, you don't need to mark every stitch. For example, mark every 3rd stitch, or mark every 5th stitch. Here I'll demonstrate round 3, using the method of marking every 5th stitch. First make the turning chain. Then follow the chart to crochet 4 stitches. Still place 2 markers at the first stitch position. Now after completing 4 stitches, mark the 5th stitch position below. Continue using the same method. Crochet 4 more stitches. Remember the stitch you just completed is the 5th stitch position. Crochet 4 stitches from this stitch. Mark the next stitch after completing. Left side of the previous stitch marker to the current marker position. That's 5 stitches. You can also feel it or part the fibers. You'll see a general braid pattern. Continue crocheting using this method. And if the previously completed stitch pattern. If you're unsure what stitch was crocheted, feel it. Only one firm stitch. That is the stitch post, meaning one stitch was crocheted. Below in a chain space. Drawing through to create 2 stitch posts, that's an increase. After finishing the last stitch marker of the previous round, remove the stitch marker. Moving down to the 2nd stitch marker position at the 1st stitch. Let's check the stitch count now. Starting from the 2nd stitch marker on the left side. There are 5 stitches between each marker. Let's count the number of stitch markers. There are 7 stitch markers here, meaning up to this marker position. There are a total of 35 stitches. plus the last crocheted stitch, making 36 stitches in total, matching the stitch count with the chart. Finally, at the position of the 2 stitch markers, which is the first stitch, join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. The third round is complete. Mark each completed round afterward. Similarly, mark above the previous marker position. If stitch markers run out later, use other colors for marking. Cut a piece of yarn. Then from the position that needs marking, pick up approximately the corresponding stitch. Draw the yarn through. Tie a knot with the yarn tail. This is the method of marking with yarn tails. For the fourth round afterward, crochet following the marking method of the third round. If you really can't find the exact position, we can work within a specific area. Crochet the corresponding number of stitches. Slight deviations in the insertion position within the corresponding area are okay. Here I'll demonstrate the method using the fourth round. First, make the beginning chain. In the previous round, there were 5 stitches between my stitch markers. So I'll insert the hook at 5 positions between them. Follow the stitch pattern on the chart. Complete this area first. And while crocheting this round, continue to mark every 3 or 5 stitches. I'll continue crocheting by marking every 5 stitches. First, work 1 double crochet. The first stitch should always be marked. And use 2 stitch markers to distinguish it. Then work 1 double crochet 2 in 1. Insert the hook into the small hole here. Pay attention to the small hole near the fabric's edge. Part the fibers to check. You can faintly see a braid-like texture. Continue working 1 double crochet downward. Then mark it. Work 1 double crochet in the adjacent stitch. When you reach the stitch marker position, correspondingly make a double crochet increase. In this end area, Insert the hook into 5 stitch positions. Repeat this process afterward. Continue crocheting. Insert the hook into roughly corresponding small holes. When counting stitches, you can also check by feeling the small holes. Take it slow while crocheting. The insertion point can be roughly corresponding. Complete the corresponding number of stitches. Now you've reached the starting position. Let's check it. If you make a mistake in stitch techniques while crocheting, no worries, as long as the final stitch count matches the total stitches. Slip stitch at the beginning position to finish. Pull tight. The 4th round is completed. Once you're more experienced with crocheting, you can also feel it by touch. The fabric will have a bumpy texture. The raised parts that feel firm represent a round. The dents are the holes. We can also count the holes. One hole represents one round. Since every iron's tension varies, check the dimensions against the chart after finishing the 4th round. If the dimensions differ significantly, it's recommended to adjust your tension and restart crocheting. For the 5th round, work even without increasing or decreasing. This way the stitch markers will align perfectly between the 2 rounds. Afterward, follow the back and forth method. All rounds should be worked even without increases or decreases. You can mark the first stitch of every row and every round. When crocheting back and forth, end at the first marked stitch of the previous row, indicating the completion of a row. When the yarn runs out while crocheting, you can join yarn using incomplete stitches. The method is identical to the cotton yarn demonstration. When changing colors, follow the color change method shown with cotton yarn. Finally, cut the yarn after completing the crocheting, and weave in all yarn tails to the wrong side of the fabric. This concludes the crocheting method for the original yarn. At this point, the main part is completely explained. Next, make the decorations. Divide it into pom-poms, hanging loop and ears. Make and attach separately. First make the pom-poms. using foundation chain to start, then crocheting in rounds. New stitch techniques used: X for single crochet, V for single crochet increase, A for single crochet decrease. Now watch my demonstration. For easier viewing here, I'm still using cotton yarn for demonstration. Everyone can learn the method first, then use corresponding yarn to crochet. First chain to start. Cast on 2 stitches. Mark after completing the first stitch. For original yarn, just mark the chain space. Continue with one more stitch. Starting chain completed, then insert hook into the second to last stitch, which is the marked stitch. Correspondingly make 6 single crochets. First, make the first single crochet. Before crocheting, place a stitch marker through the entire loop. Then insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. Now there are 2 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook in once. This is a single crochet. The braid on the upper right is the stitch, and also the position marked by the stitch marker. Let me demonstrate again. If you can't find the right spot with the original yarn, mark every stitch. Same as placing a marker through the loop before crocheting. I'm using cotton yarn for crocheting here. Makes it easier to see the stitch positions, so I only mark the first stitch, won't mark the rest. Just go with what works for you. Insert into the previous stitch's insertion point. Yarn over and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. Complete the single crochet. Continue with 4 single crochets. Check the stitch count after completing. With the original yarn, feel for the small hole. Then at the first stitch's marker position, join with a slip stitch. You can remove the stitch marker from the previous insertion point here. Pull tight. Same as the slip stitch at the end isn't shown in the chart. When crocheting in rounds, always finish by joining with a slip stitch. Pull tight after completing. The first round is complete. When using the original yarn to crochet, remember to mark after each round. Convenient for checking the number of rounds later. Move on to crochet the second round. Make 1 beginning chain to start. This beginning chain isn't shown in the chart. When crocheting single crochets in rounds, always make 1 chain stitch as the beginning chain to start. Then pick up the marker position. Work a single crochet increase, which means make 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Pay attention to mark before crocheting. Similarly, when using the original yarn to crochet, you can mark every single stitch, or mark every 3 or 5 stitches. Choose according to your actual situation. When marking the first stitch, you still need to use 2 stitch markers. For easy identification, I'm still only marking on the first stitch here. One stitch. 2 stitches. Complete the single crochet increase. Continue picking up stitches downward. Work 5 single crochet increases evenly. Check the stitch count after completion. Then pick up the first stitch position, and join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. The second round is complete. Continue to crochet the third round. Make one beginning chain to start. Then work one single crochet correspondingly. Followed by one single crochet increase. Now complete one group of stitch patterns in parentheses. Continue crocheting with this method. Finally join with a slip stitch on the first stitch. Pull tight. The third round is complete. For the following 4th to 5th rounds, the chart shows even 1/8x, meaning one stitch corresponds to one single crochet, total of 18 stitches. Make one beginning chain to start. Then pick up stitches evenly to work single crochets. Check the stitch count after completing. Then pick up the first stitch and join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. The 4th round is complete. For the following 5th round, the method is identical to the 4th round. Work evenly. Refer to the chart for crocheting. Pay attention to make a beginning chain at the start. Finish with a slip stitch at the end. After completion, proceed to the 6th round. Here I'll demonstrate using this swatch. Start by making a beginning chain, then work one single crochet. Then work a single crochet decrease. First insert into the adjacent stitch to make an incomplete single crochet. Insert. Yarn over and draw through. 2 loops remain on the hook. This is an incomplete single crochet. Continue with an adjacent incomplete single crochet. Insert, yarn over and draw through. Now there are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw through all loops in once. Complete the single crochet decrease. Then work one single crochet. Complete the stitch pattern in parentheses. Continue with one single crochet downward. Work a single crochet decrease on adjacent stitches. First insert into 2 adjacent stitches. Make an incomplete single crochet. 1, 2. Finally yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the single crochet decrease. Then work one single crochet. Another group completed. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting. Finish the last stitch. Join with a slip stitch in the first stitch. Pull tight. The 6th round is completed. The rest continue following the chart. After completing the second to last round, stuff a little fiber fill inside. Here I'll demonstrate the method using a swatch. First fluff up the fiber fill before stuffing. Adjust the amount as needed. Too much will make it stiff. Too little won't hold shape. Then continue with the final round. After completing all, cut the yarn and leave a tail for sewing. First secure with a chain stitch. Then leave a 10 cm yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. Whenever you need to leave a yarn tail at the end, repeat this process. That concludes the demonstration of crocheting the pom-pom. Simply crochet another pom-pom using the same method. Next, crochet the hanging loop. Use the method of holding 2 strands to chain. Here I'll still demonstrate using cotton yarn. You'll need 2 yarn tails for crocheting. A skein has 2 yarn tails. One on the surface. One in the center. Pick up both yarn tails. Then reserve about 15 centimeters. Join the yarns and make a slip knot. Place it on the crochet hook. Next, hang one strand with your left hand. Lay the other strand over the hook from bottom to top. Yarn over and pull through. Continue to lay the lower yarn strand over the hook. Then yarn over and pull through. After that, repeat this process. I'll crochet a few more stitches. This is the method for hanging yarn and crocheting chain stitches. Continue downward using this technique. Crochet to the length indicated on the chart. Once the proper length is reached, reserve a 15 cm yarn tail and cut the yarn. Then pull the loop on the hook through. Tie the 2 yarn tails together to secure. This completes the hanging loop crocheting. Attach the hanging loop to the main part of the hat. Use the reserved yarn tail from the hanging loop. Tie a knot at both pointed ends of the hat. You can use either a crochet hook or sewing needle. Pull out one of the reserved yarn tails. Then tie a double knot with the yarn tail. Weave in the yarn for several stitches within the fabric. Simply weave through the chain spaces near the hanging loop. Repeat this process to weave in the other yarn tail. Complete this part on your own. That concludes the hanging loop attachment instructions. Next, attach a pom-pom to the other end of the hanging loop. Use the reserved yarn from the pom-pom. Sew through the hanging loop area for several stitches to secure. Simultaneously sew close the opening of the pom-pom. No specific method required. Just make it secure and neat. The yarn tail from the hanging loop can be threaded into the pom-pom. Fasten off and weave in the ends. Trim any remaining tails. This completes one pom-pom attachment. Attach the other one using the same method. Complete this part on your own. Next, crochet the ears. Begin with a chain stitch. Follow the magic ring, form a loop. Change colors during this process. Two new stitch techniques are used, T half double crochet and TV, half double crochet increase. Watch my demonstration. For convenience of watching, here I use cotton yarn for demonstration. Start with a chain stitch, then refer to the chart and crochet the corresponding number of chains. I've already completed the foundation chain here. Everyone use the original yarn when actually making it. When counting stitches, feel the dent holes. One hole represents one stitch. Begin the first round after completion. First, mark the first stitch. Then pick the second to last stitch. With the original yarn, feel for the second hole below the hook. Here I insert the hook into one strand of the chain. With the original yarn, pick the chain space, then work 12 single crochets correspondingly. When using the original yarn, mark every 3 or 5 stitches. I'm using cotton yarn here, so I only mark the first stitch. After completion, work half double crochets downward. Yarn over once. Insert into the corresponding position. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on the hook. Complete the half double crochet. Let me demonstrate again. First, yarn over. Insert. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the half double crochet. Continue with 10 half double crochets. Then work 12 double crochets correspondingly. After that, reach the last chain space. Here the chart shows 5F. The square brackets indicate the stitch techniques inside. Work into the same position. So at the last chain stitch, crochet 5 double crochets. Later pick up the other side to crochet, which is the insertion point for the stitch techniques on this side. Follow the original yarn model for the hole. Start from the second hole inward from the edge. Refer to the chart to work the corresponding stitches. Complete the last stitch. Join with a slip stitch in the first stitch. Pull tight. Change colors for the next round. Cut the yarn. The first round is complete. Move on to crochet round 2. Insert the hook into the first stitch of the previous round. Pick up the new color. Hang the yarn with your left hand. Leave a little yarn tail behind. Then yarn over and pull through. Make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Leave the yarn tail unsecured for now. Continue working the corresponding stitches according to the chart. Keep crocheting until just before the new stitch technique position. You don't need to mark this round. When you reach the corresponding position, work a half double crochet increase downward, which means working 2 half double crochets in 1 stitch. First stitch. Second stitch. Complete the half double crochet increase. Continue following the chart for the remaining stitches. Finally slip stitch into the first stitch position. The original yarn makes it hard to find the stitch. Insert the hook into a roughly corresponding position and crochet. You can tighten or not tighten here. Then break the yarn. Leave about 15 centimeters for sewing. Besides the reserved yarn tail, tuck the other yarn tails to the wrong side of the fabric. That's how to crochet 1 ear explained. Crochet another ear using the same method. Complete it on your own. After done, proceed to assembly. First check the installation position. Place the side with the slit at the back of the hat. Then align the front without the slit. Fold the hat in half. Down at the folded edge. Forward to a relatively centered position. Attach the ears horizontally. Here sew the narrower side of the ear to the main part. While overlapping part of the ear with the main part, you can adjust the installation position according to your preference. Find the right position. Start attaching downward. Here I'm demonstrating with a small swatch. Position is up to you, mainly demonstrating the method. Use the reserved yarn. Match and sew together the overlapping area of the ear and main part. No specific technique required, just make it securely. Thread the needle. Pay attention not to sew behind the main part. Tie a knot after completing. Hide the remaining yarn tails inside the fabric. One ear is now attached. Do the other one using the same method, attach symmetrically. Everyone complete it on your own. The decorative elements section is now finished. Finally, let's tidy up the hat. During the process, some fibers may get pressed inside the fabric. We can brush the fibers with a brush. Pick out the fibers pressed underneath. Don't brush too hard. Gently lift the fibers. You can also use a crochet hook or yarn needle to pick the fibers. As long as the effect looks pleasing, up to this point, the entire hat making process is complete. If you have any unclear parts during the crocheting process, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.